Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. You are watching the BAK Talk Bros, and I am the K in the BAK Talk Bros. I am Keys, and I don't think we'll have Aaron here with us tonight. Gooch might pop in here at some point, like always, but this episode of the BAK Talk Bros, our midnight stream here, we're going to talk about Chiefs free agency. We might get into NFL free agency. Who knows? XFL. Um, yeah, who knows what all we'll get into. And of course, as always, we'll get into chat Q&A. So I want to thank those of you who are watching us. And for those who hit us up on the replay here, we oftentimes don't do this because we forget. We are here for you guys first to be part of this community. But if you're not already a subscriber, please make sure that you subscribe, you give us a thumbs up, and turn on the bell notification so you know when we are live. Something we hope to do more and more here in the coming days. We've all been kind of hit with our own kind of busyness of life. So, with all that said, if you got any questions, anything you want to talk about tonight, you can throw that in the chat. Otherwise, here, hopefully, Gooch will join us here in a few minutes, and we will start getting into our reaction to Chiefs free agency. So, um, yeah, I'm going to give everyone a couple minutes here, and then we'll get into that. We'll start talking uh, Chiefs free agent losses, Chiefs free agent additions, um, what we're concerned about, how we're feeling here, uh, what additions we might expect here in the future, and weird. Okay. Not sure what happened there, but anyway. So we'll see where that takes us here. Not sure exactly how long we'll be on tonight, but yeah. So let's hear it. What are your guys' thoughts so far on our free agency? Any surprises that you guys have seen here so far? Holly's with us. Holly, glad you're here. Wasn't sure whether you'd make it or not. So I know that you had said in the RGR chat you had a lot going on, so didn't want to say anything and have you feel like you needed to be here, but certainly glad that you're here. Holly said, "I know you're already planning to cover this, but addressing the what it seems like every year thought that the Chiefs haven't done enough." Yeah, I mean, one year that's probably going to be right, right? Like every year we've talked about the year that Tom Brady finally, hits a cliff, and we've seen the end of Tom Brady, and we eventually did. It took, to his him getting to 45 years old and having a lot of personal stuff go on and his team get decimated, but we finally saw Tom Brady finally hit that wall. So, I think we should keep that in the back of our minds. Eventually, if we keep having the mindset of, we'll get by because of who our quarterback is, it could come back to bite us. I saw someone, talk about that reality that, it's kind of a double-edged sword there of once Pat proves that he can do it with lesser weapons, it kind of tempts the front office and the head coach to want to continue to go down that path. And hey, I mean, we understand, you have to build a team here. Um, I mean, I think the reality is there's just a lot of uncertainty, right? There's just a lot of unknowns right now. Like, I think basically every Chiefs fan believes in the potential of Kadarius Toney. Like, I don't know anyone who doesn't believe in that potential. Like, that's not really what the question is, right? The question is, how do we feel about his ability for the first time in his NFL career to actually stay healthy, right? That's the issue. Will he stay healthy? Will Sky Moore take a jump in his second year? Um, can Travis continue to produce the way he has? He was very candid in episodes of New Heights about how this season physically took a toll on his body. Um, and I know there's some other Chiefs YouTubers out there who really think that Travis only has about a year left and then he's going to hang it up. I personally think I think he's going to try for at least another 2 or 3 years. I think he wants those records. Um, I think that he's already shown with the contracts he's taken and the comments he's made that his focus is on his legacy. So I really think that's his motivation is putting up those legacy numbers, getting to those all-time top positions. And I mean, I think he enjoys life with Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback and Andy Reid as his head coach. So, you know, I think that's it. I think the marriage for when Travis is done is when Andy retires and Travis has hit those legacy goals that he has. When he's done that, whichever you could say, maybe whichever one comes first, I think that's the end of the line for Travis. But um, yeah, I get the uncertainty part of it, totally myself. We have to see Kadarius Toney have a healthy season. We can be optimistic that he'll have a whole offseason with our training staff and our medical team. There's nothing wrong with that. But, again, until we actually see it, it's not, it's completely understandable why people aren't comfortable with it. We have to see him healthy. We just have to see him healthy. We have to see Sky Moore actually take a sophomore step up, right? And part of it is because of the lack of development we saw with McColl, over his 4 years in Kansas City. So, um, you know, I think it's okay to hope in Justin Ross. The the surgery he had, the injury he had, very scary. Um, you know, to me, he's a lottery ticket. Yeah, I hope that he's the ticket that has the winning Powerball numbers on it. But right now, that's all he is hope. Um, you can't cash a check with a potential winning lottery ticket. Like, you're not paying off debts that way. So, um, I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, Holly, because I think this is the main area a lot of Chiefs fans are concerned with and don't feel that the team has done enough with is the wide receiver room in and of itself. I'm expecting, or I want to see another offensive tackle on the team. I want to see what the team does to replace Michael Burton, the fullback position. They're going to just use a tight end uh, back there when they have those snaps. Burton snaps just like Anthony Sherman snaps. Their last 2 years in Kansas City, both of them. Well, Burton was only here for 2 years, but his two seasons of snaps looked very similar to Sherman's, where they had around 70 so as a fullback um, in their second to last season, which was Burton's first season, and then they were down around the low 50s, high 40 ish. Um, so not a whole lot of fullback snaps. They were a lot of special team snaps, but even those over the years from that position have went down. And so I'm interested to see what they do. Um, I'm not mad they brought Blake Bell back, but I would certainly be happy if they drafted a tight end, not in the first round. But day two, day three, if they want to draft a tight end, I'd have no problem with that. I know people want to see trades for receivers. They want to see draft of receivers. My biggest caution is even if we traded up in the first round, I still don't have the confidence that the only reason that Andy Reid doesn't play his rookie receivers is because they don't have that pedigree. Because that's basically what you're saying. If you trade up in the first round, as a fan, if you're wanting us to, the expectation is this rookie is going to get legitimate snaps. And we just haven't seen that from Andy Reid. And so, that's kind of a concern there. Um, I feel like I'm rambling here, Holly. I'm going to check the chat here, and you can let me know if I was way off on kind of what you were thinking, and what you guys are thinking so far on what I've said here. Holly says she has a lot going on, but it's going through chief withdrawals. Yeah, I've been watching the XFL to kind of help out with my football withdrawals a little bit, and we might get into that here in a little bit. Hopefully, Gooch joins us here. I know Aaron is doing a family thing, so he won't be joining us tonight. But Gooch is supposed to drop in. Yeah, we might chat some XFL a little bit. If you guys have watched any XFL, let me know, and let me know what your thoughts are so far, and if you're liking it or what you're liking, if you're liking about the XFL and some of the differences between the XFL and the NFL. We might chat about that a little bit. Hey, Daryl, good to see you. Glad that you're with us here tonight. Daryl, Aaron is uh, he's watching a movie at his parents' house with his brother. I hope I'm allowed to say that. If not, Aaron, sorry. Liz, don't tell Aaron I said it if Aaron doesn't watch. But yeah. Yeah, Daryl, it's hard to go solo, but I'm used to it a little bit, simply because Gooch runs on Gooch time, running around with his cape on, saving stores. So legitimately doing much more important things. Um, Although this would be more enjoyable for him. So when he can get on and he can get away from late night hectic work, then we'll be happy to have him on here. But yeah, I'm gonna try my best to hold down the fort, but you guys will probably end up being the star of the show, so that makes it a little bit easier. Holly says it just seems like every year there's the same chatter on social media that the Chiefs aren't doing enough in free agency, yet we've remained Super Bowl contenders and winners. Yeah, I mean, I think that I think probably in some past years that was kind of warranted a little bit, right? There were times where we didn't necessarily do enough, right? Veach attacked defense and volume this last year, and that paid dividends. But before last year, how much had we really been investing in the draft on the defense? I think it's a legitimate question. How many weapons have we drafted for Pat? The last few years. I'm talking receiving weapons. I'm not going to include CEH in there, and I'm not going to get into a CEH discussion. But I mean, we haven't exactly been giving him prime weapons, and maybe they do. Maybe they do this year. Maybe they go and they trade up and go up and get JSN and maybe he's a day one starter. I don't know. I'm not Brett Veach. I do think that they don't stay at 31. I'll say that. And I tend to think they're not going to trade back. Like, that's my inclination. I think they're, here's the thing. Was Clark Hunt joking when he told Brett Veach, he couldn't trade the first round pick? Probably. But I also believe that behind every joke, there's at least a little sliver of truth behind it, So I want to say that I think Clark Hunt is actually a little bit serious in that. Um, maybe it's more of a really strong, I prefer you don't get out of the first round type of thing. So my inclination actually is to believe that they do trade up again this year in the draft. But, you know, I, I mean, here's the thing. And I talked about this in a tweet the other day. Brett Veach has plan A through Z for every single position, or if you want to think of it as a problem to solve, every single one of them. He has his A through Z preference, right? Choice A is obviously his best choice. Uh, choice Z is obviously much worse than choice A. He has choices A through Z for each one of these scenarios. Okay, probably not A through Z for offensive tackle because there's not really 26, guys out there that you can use as a replacement left tackle or right tackle. But you get the idea. So if Brett Veach has this A through Z, people will say, well, just trust Veach. He has a plan. Yeah, that's true. He has his A through Z plan for a position, but the reality is it still takes things outside of his control, right? If he's going to go after a free agent, it takes that agent or that player and that player's agent, willing to uh, sign the offer that the Chiefs make, especially if the Chiefs don't have the best offer. If Veach wants to trade for someone like DeAndre Hopkins, it's not like it's Madden where you go out and you want to trade for someone and you find and you keep working an offer until the computer says accepted. The reality is Arizona's got to be willing to trade them. Maybe there's got to be some willingness to, restructure the contract a little bit. Like, there's things outside of Veach's control in most every single plan. So it's not like we can just completely rest at night saying, Veach has a plan, it's all going to work out. Well, he has plans and he has great contingency plans, but he can only do so much, he can only control so much. And, I think the reality is that when those situations come to where you get farther down the plan, you're on to like R, or you get close to Z, that's where the coaching staff has to make do with whatever he's able, that's where they have to close that gap. But I think it's fair to an extent to freak out a little bit, just a little bit. But I would say that it's probably much better to wait till after the draft, because one thing we know about Veach, he's gonna get basically every hole filled. We might not like the person that he fills the hole with. They might be a borderline starter, but they're going to be someone that the team at least feels okay with if that player has to fill the role that the team needs. So that Brett Veach, when draft day comes, he doesn't feel the pressure to reach for a position of need. All of a sudden, there's technically no such thing as a position of need. He can take who he truly believes is the best player available. Or I think in their sense, there's, like he keeps talking about a pocket of players. So there's a group of players, either by position or, they're just ranked by their grades. So they had like what, 18-ish first round graded players, right? We have 31 picks, which means that, there's 13 players or so that they're not going to have rated as first round players, probably second round players. And that is when our pick is. So, if you're Veach, you're looking to trade up to that 18 to 20 spot, maybe even more. But that takes teams up in those spots willing to trade those picks. It takes you being able to outdo another team's offer, which is harder because we have the last pick in each round. That's what happens when you're a Super Bowl champion, when you're in the conference championship game every year or the Super Bowl every year. You have those last few picks, even trading future picks. Teams just, they're going to expect it's end of round. So Veach can only do so much there, and that's kind of the reality with the whole thing. Um, but yeah, I do believe he's going to try to get up as far as he can. He doesn't have to pull off the trade, right? He's just got to get the framework for this trade, trading up to this spot or this spot, or a few spots. Have an idea what it's going to take. Have those trades tentatively in place if they want to take those, if they want to move up to those spots. And if a player starts to fall there, then you pull the trigger. So, and then after the draft is finished, we have 10 picks this year. I don't know if we'll keep them all, but then after the draft is finished, then let's see what's left. I think we'll be fine. Um, I don't think people really freak out as much as the issue is. It's kind of like a control thing, right? We want player X, Y, and Z. We want Veach to get player X, Y, and Z. And, we're adults, so we throw temper tantrums in different ways. We don't, most of us, and usually we don't do it the same way kids do. Daryl says, I'm still wondering if we're going to bring in a vet to back up Mahomes. Yeah, that's a great question, Daryl. Um, Gooch might disagree with me. I don't know about Aaron, other people out there. I tend to believe that Shane Buechele is the guy. I think they'll bring in competition, and as long as Buechele hasn't regressed, he's continuing to take those steps forward. I'm of the opinion that he's your backup. The Chiefs made a very conscientious decision to protect him now 2 years in a row. 2021 towards the end of the season, other teams wanted to sign him as they were losing quarterbacks. So we brought him up from the practice squad, to keep him safe. And from that point forward, he has been on the 53-man roster. He was on the 53 all this year. He wasn't activated for games, but he was on the 53 this year. I don't think that's something that they do if I'll put it this way. I think the only way they do that, if they don't value him as the potential backup quarterback, is if they didn't feel that they had 53 guys worthy of a roster spot. So they just let Buechele be the 53rd guy because nobody after 52, guys on the practice squad, they did a lot of moving around. So guys after 52, they just didn't feel worthy of a active 53-man roster spot. I mean, I think those are the only two things that logically make sense, but I'm of the opinion that they really like Buechele because they've kept him on the 53-man roster for a year and a half now. So, but yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe there is a veteran out there that they really like. Maybe there's just a match that makes sense, or maybe Buechele does regress. Any of those things can happen, and so you never know. But I think having Matt Nagy back kind of takes away from some of that need to have that veteran quarterback in the room for Pat's sake. You got Matt there, so I think that, that kind of fills part of that void, but we'll see. That's kind of the fun of it, is speculating. What do you think, Daryl? What do you think, Holly? Anybody else in the chat? What are your guys' thought on that? Is Bichelle our backup quarterback, or are they going to bring in a veteran? If you think they're going to bring in a veteran, who do you think it might be, or who do you want it to be? Um, all right, good to know, Holly. Daryl says the Chargers are the best in the AFC West. They say it every year. They do say it every year. One year might be true. Like I said, every year we talked about, will this be the year that Tom Brady uh, finally feels his age? He finally plays to his age. So, Holly says, I'd like to hear about the XFL. I haven't watched it much. Yeah, I've tried to. There's only like 4 games on a week. So, but yeah, we can definitely talk about the XFL here, guys. I think and ladies, I think we're all itching for football to start up again. Holly says the only thing I know about the XFL is that Tommy Townsend's brother Johnny is the punter for the Orlando Guardians. Hey, I didn't even know that. I've kind of been more interested in who the coaches are, to be honest. So Daryl said he looked good during last preseason. Who are we talking about here, Daryl? Bouchel? I'm guessing Bouchel. Holly says I was thinking the guy is Bouchel. I wanted Ben Kurt, but he's in the XFL now. Yeah, there's been some, I would say, decent quarterback play from the XFL, and then there's seems like almost every XFL quarterback, since I guess this we're going there. Every XFL quarterback has had those throws where you're like, okay, yep, that's why you're in the XFL instead of the NFL, right? Like, I think it's harder now for us as Chiefs fans to remember. Easier for those of us who have just recently become Chiefs fans, but for those of us who've been with this team a long time, right, and we can start naming, quarterbacks, um, from Joe Montana to Alex Tanney, their trick shot, um, all these quarterbacks that we've had on this team over the years. And I think the reality is it's something that we miss a lot with NFL quarterbacks is, for the most part, the margin between the backups and starting quarterbacks really isn't that huge. It's, Patrick Mahomes makes the gap look way bigger, right? It's crazy watching Mahomes and then watching other quarterbacks, because instantly, I don't know how you guys feel, but like for me, when I'm watching like a college quarterback now, like it seems like it's so much easier to say, okay, this kid, he just has it, because we see it with Mahomes, and we see the opposite of it in a lot of other quarterbacks, and so I think it's easier to spot. Um, But yeah, some of these kids, some of the quarterbacks in the XFL, like they'll have some really exciting moments, and then they'll have some. Yeah, that's why you're in the XFL, right there, man. Just some absolutely boneheaded plays, and someone out there might say, well, yeah, but even Mahomes has had boneheaded plays. Well, yeah, but he hasn't had it against an XFL, caliber defense, right? Teams have thrown the book at Mahomes. Like they have plotted their hearts out against Mahomes. NFL, best of the best, not XFL players. But yeah, I have enjoyed the XFL for the most part. Like, if you follow me on Twitter, um, I love the kickoff rules. Uh, if you haven't watched the XFL, like the kickoff rules the differences from the NFL is both teams, like, they line up 5 yards apart from each other, and the ball has to be kicked off inside of like a rectangle from like the between the 20 and the goal line. Like it has to be kicked off in that space. Otherwise, it's a penalty. And neither team, 5 yards apart, but neither team is allowed to move until the returner catches the ball. So you're not getting all these head start, like huge running impact collisions um, that are responsible for all these injuries that the NFL has been trying to combat against. And I really like it because you still get some fun returns out of it, but the player safety issue is there, and you're not getting touchbacks. You're seeing returns every time. Um, and I really like this rule. I like it more and more, especially because the I forget the technical term here, like the NFL competition committee, I believe that's it, has been proposing rules that basically, in my belief, may like they're just trying to abolish the kickoff. Like they want to do things like they want to give kick returners the ability to fair catch um, inside of the 25-yard line and get to start at the 25. So, for instance, Dave Tobe has Harrison Butker uh, do one of his special kicks that has a hang time of about 5.5 seconds, and it drops at like the 4 yard line. Right, the whole intention is there. Give our kick coverage team time to get down there, and we're going to tackle a guy at the 10 or 15 yard line, or maybe force some holds on the return. And instead of them starting at the 25, they're going to start at like the 10 yard line or the 5 yard line or the 15 yard line. This rule would allow that guy to just call for a fair catch and automatically get to start at the 25 yard line, which to me it's just absolutely stupid. You're just trying to take away the kick return. Like that's your goal. You want to make the kick return something completely boring, completely bland, something people no longer even care to see. And I hate it. Here you have the XFL, they're combating the injury problem. They found a creative way to do it, and it's exciting. I just think, like, to me, the kind of things that Butker does on his kickoffs when Dave Tobe asks him, it's right up there with having a punter being able to, kick a coffin corner punt, right, where it goes out of bounds at like the 3 yard line. And it just, man, it just seems so stupid. Now I say that, but it's still kind of, the XFL eliminated the PAT, right? Which I think those of us who are Chiefs fans and like Butker or want to like Butker, like maybe Liz, would actually like not having to see Butker kick a PAT here. So you have to go for it. You have a 1 point, 2 point, or 3 point try, and I believe it's like the 5 yard. Someone can correct me here. I think it's 5 yard, 10 yard, and 15 yard, or it could be like 2, 5, and 10, something like that. And so you're going for it no matter what, which kind of makes it fun because in the NFL, if there's a minute and a half left and you're down by 9, your chances are you're pretty much screwed to be able to come back. But in the XFL, if you're down by 9, that's a touchdown and going for it, going for 3 from the 15 yard line or whatever. So there's just a lot more excitement there. Those are a couple of the things that I really like about them. I really love the Sky Judge, whatever they call it. I love that you get to hear the conversations between the crew and what I'm calling the Sky Judge, who's looking at the replays and looking at everything. You get to hear everything while it's happening. there's complete transparency there as they talk about what's seen and what's not seen. Is this a penalty or not? Um, and I guess along the same lines, it's kind of fun to hear the coaches calling out the plays and then the announcer, kind of dissect what it all means and what you should kind of expect there. Um, I think it's great for someone who's learning the game and who's wanting to learn. We hear these really long Andy Reid play calls, or these John Gruden ones back when he was doing um, his little chalkboard thing. Uh, and so I don't know. Those are some things that I like about the XFL. And so that's fun here. I'm gonna get back here to the chat though. And you guys been watching the XFL. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about the competition committee and the rules that they're proposing. Um, my mom and dad are in hospice. Wow, Daryl, I'm really 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 sorry to hear that. That's a tough one, man. I'm want to thank you for sharing that here with your BAK family, man. Uh, you know, we're all here with you. You're going to be in our thoughts. Your mom and dad are going to be, in our thoughts as well. And yeah, I don't want to ever discourage anyone from sharing uh, anything. I've seen some bloggers out there who, man, just had some of the ugliest reactions. Like, don't always know what to say, right? How many of us know like the perfect thing to say? You know, I rarely know even a good thing to say. But I know, I know this. I know that it feels nice to know that other people understand what you're going through, that other people care about you, that they're thinking about you. So, um, yeah, Daryl, know that every single one of us in here, we're with you. You're going to be in our thoughts, man, and we in our prayers. We yeah, it's a tough thing. Well, Aaron agrees with something I said. I'm gonna assume. I know he did. I'm sure he agrees with what I just said, but I don't know if he's talking about Bouchel. Aaron, you'll have to let me know. You agreeing about Bouchel? You agreeing about the XFL? You agreeing about the competition committee and their stupid rules? Oh, that's even harder, man. Yeah, yeah. That's just it's that's kind of one of those hard things in life. You know, like how do we deal with that? What do we do? You know, I when I guess when my dad was technically in hospice, I was only 16, so I didn't really understand, what they were doing. They put him on a. He was in the hospital one, but they put him on a slow morphine drip. So kind of the way it was conveyed to us was it was just like a pain management thing, and I just a naive kid. I'm a stubborn, fighter by nature. So you know, um, but yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. So it looks like Aaron, Daryl, and Aaron. What is snagging, guys? I assume it's a fishing thing. I could be absolutely wrong on that, but okay. It sounds like they're taking over. If this is fishing, you guys are just straight up taking over, and you're teaching us a thing or two. What is spoonvilling? This sounds like okay. This sounds like something. This sounds like a town or something from like Dr. Seuss. I'm sure it's fishing. I'm sure you guys are talking about fishing, but one of you two will have to tell us in the chat what snagging and spoonvilling is. I'm mildly intrigued just because I'm a curious person, but yeah, let us know in the chat. Um, I okay. Apparently, Gooch is saying I got to send him an invite, so I'm going to try to do that here really quick. And yeah, so what do you guys think about the competition committee, that kickoff rule? Is that something you'd like to see? I mean, I personally wouldn't. Um, but again, you know, you might disagree, but to me, it just seems like they're trying to make the kickoff something that you don't even care about anymore. Like, and I just think that's dumb. I think this is a reason why the XFL is good for the NFL, because the XFL can be a playground for things that most NFL owners, maybe even fans, um, are too afraid to do. You know, like getting too afraid with doing anything to change the game. You know, I have my things. Maybe you do too. That I never want to see changed. You know, for me, probably more so in baseball. Like I hate baseball now. I am a National League guy. I am a pitcher hitting guy. I hate the DH. I don't mind it in the American League. You know, I was fine with the league distinctives of the American League having it and the National League not. But there's a beauty in the strategy of making double switches, pitchers having to bunt, you know, all these different things um, that are lost in the game now. And I don't feel like that's me being an old man and you know, being stuck in like the tradition of the game. It's just like it's the strategy thing. Like it's the Tony La Russa versus Dusty Baker in 2003, the strategy they pulled, you know, it's a beautiful thing. And it's something that we see in football all the time now. Well, not now, but I mean, period. You know, once you understand the game enough to know that it's not just guys running into each other, that, you know, there's a plan and there's a strategy, you know, there is a deliberate plan of attack. There's, you know, manipulations, all of these different things. You appreciate the beauty of the strategy. You know, there's an intellectual stimulation that's there with the strategy in the NFL in so many ways. You know, whether it's time management, you know, even if you bring in analytics now and it's a matter of going for it, you know, all these things. There's so much strategy there. There's so much to it. And every time that pops up in baseball now, they tried to eliminate it. Whether it was the strategy involved of not having a DH in the National League, um, or even the shift. Like, how are you going to eliminate a shift? Like, this is something that ticks me off. Anybody who watched baseball 20, 30 years ago and farther back, you saw players who could put the ball wherever they wanted to. They could put it in the left field, they could put it in center field, they could put it in right field. If you're a good hitter, you can do that. Nowadays, they don't want good hitters. If they had good hitters, guess what? They wouldn't worry about the shift. But I'm done talking about baseball. But yeah, let's find out what. Back to our fishing topic here. Daryl says it's a big billed fish. Okay, bottom feeder. Okay. All right. Holly says, I don't like the proposed rule. Like the way the XFL is handling it. Most kickoffs are touchbacks anyway, which is boring. Yeah, I mean, it seemed like the interesting thing about it was Dave Tobe was actually one of the people spearheading the NFL moving the touchback to the 25-yard line. He was one of the people behind that, and the reasoning for it was player safety. Right? They wanted to discourage kick returns. Dave Tobe was one of the guys behind that. The funny thing to me, the interesting thing to me is, what have we seen from Dave Tobe since that time? Our guys are returning it out more than they should. And a lot of times we have Butker, putting some hang time on his kickoffs, well, before this season with the injury, but since then and mostly before the season, we get these high hang time kicks that, he's dropping at like the 2 or 3 yard line. So we're returning it, 4 or 5 yards deep, and we're trying to force other teams to return it, inside their 5 yard line, and giving our kickoff coverage time to get down there to stop them well short of the 25. So, I don't know, just interesting to me, but yeah, I don't mind the strategy of those kind of kicks. It turns your kicker into, well, you're it's a deficiency if you don't have a kicker who can do that, right? It it kind of turns kickers like Butker into like a market inefficiency when you have one who can do it. It gives you a huge advantage there. Um, and I personally like it. And I'm going to put Gooch's face here on the screen. Gooch, aka the talent, not named by me or anyone who knows him. Gooch, good to see you. Well, he joined. No camera, no microphone. So we'll wait a second here. But yeah, Holly, I like the forced kickoffs. Like, I like the action. And it's fun too. It's not like guys are, getting stopped immediately. We've seen some guys squirt out and have some great runs there. So I like it. It's something I like to see the NFL actually do. Of all the things the XFL does, if I could move one rule over, it would be this one for sure. So, but yeah. Daryl says he never liked the new kickoff rules. You talking about the touchback being a 25-yard line now, Daryl, or are you talking about the proposed rules, or are you talking about the what the XFL is doing? I don't know if you guys have even been catching XFL games, but there's a little bit of fun there. Like for me though, it's like the coaches. I was texting Gooch and Aaron. What was it, guys? Like a week or two ago, and I'm like, what was the matchup? Oh, it was like Wade Phillips and Bob Stoops, right? And it's just like this is such an interesting. This is like an old from like maybe 15 years ago, like maybe 15, 20 years ago matchup, right? This would have been like a really prime matchup. Bob Stoops versus Wade Phillips. So kind of another fun thing of the XFL. Hey, Denver Gators with us. Hey, Denver. What is up right now? We're talking about the XFL, but if I can get Gooch to start talking here, I think we're going to start talking about NFL free agency here, guys. Don't know how much longer I'm going to go, but anyway, let me know, guys. What do you guys think in the chat? How are you feeling about uh, free agency so far? And since we have fans of other teams in here, we'll just throw it out there. How do you feel about your own team's free agency? How do you feel about the AFC West? Who do you think the winners are so far, and who do you think the losers are? And I see Gooch has his microphone unmuted, so I'll stop talking and let Gooch start talking. Gooch, you there? All right, maybe we don't have Gooch. And he's gone. Someone's got to say the magic words to get Gooch back here and talking. All right, Daryl's talking about the NFL. Yeah, I like I said, I think it's fun. Um, Holly's saying the magic words here, so we'll see if we can get Gooch back with us. But yeah, I want to see kick returns, and I don't want to see players get hurt. So I do like the XFL for that reason, the way that they're doing it, because you get the best of both worlds. You're getting kick returns, you're getting players, doing it safely or mostly safely, as safely as you can. Um, but yeah, I understand they eventually want to get rid of the kickoff, right? And you already have teams now who want to do like what, they want to be able to have the ability to like convert a 4th and 15, right? And kind of do like a make it, take it type of situation there. I don't know. I mean, maybe if you wanted to do that in the last 4 minutes of the game, but I mean, then you're getting too much like street ball, right? This is what we did as kids. We don't want the NFL to look exactly like, teenager street ball, but there's certainly things you can add in there. Um, Definitely some things that you can improve upon. So, Denver Gator says Broncos Chiefs pretty good in free agency. Raiders suck. Uh, as always, Chargers offseason Super Bowl contenders. Yeah, I said the other day, I think on in the chat of the Dan show, the Chargers could actually be contenders this year if they got rid of their training staff, their medical staff. If they did that, this could be their year. You never know. It could be their year. So, um, yeah, we'll see. Trying to see if we can get Gooch on here as well. I did say Denver Gator. I said on the in the Dan show on the um in the chat that I thought at the Broncos, or no, I guess it was last week's episode now, a week and a half ago when Dan had me on. That I thought the Broncos made some really good moves so far. I know that as Chiefs fans, we like to laugh. Um, don't necessarily not going to see a lot of agreement out there, and I understand that. That's fine, but I'll present my reasoning. People don't have to agree with me here, but my reasoning goes like this: the two games we played the Broncos last year were the two games I seen Russell Wilson look the most like Russell Wilson the Broncos thought that they were trading for. That was with Nathaniel Hackett, who couldn't hack it as a head coach, as the head coach, and the guy they brought in to help him be a head coach, taking over as interim head coach. No disrespect to him. They nearly beat us in both of those games with those two guys as a head coach. I said last year I expected the Jags to take a huge step up simply because going from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson is a huge leap in head coaching. Doug Peterson probably, I don't know there'd be a lot of argument that he's a currently in the NFL, of all the coaches in the NFL, he's probably a top 10 head coach. I don't think there's a lot of argument there. Sean Payton is one of those guys. You could say maybe top 5 NFL head coach. I don't think he takes that job if he doesn't believe that he can craft an offense for or around Russell Wilson. I think Russ had a huge wake up call with not just how the way the season went. I think with things we saw on air with Sean Payton, Payton learning about Russell Wilson's office and whatever, all the stuff. Him having his own guys and all that stuff. So I think having Sean Payton, the guys that they're bringing in, you got a new offensive tackle, you got a new guard, who, if I recall correctly, was with the Ravens. So, and then you bring in, I don't want to say our enemy, but definitely a guy who was able to get some good runs on us, and P. Ryan from the Bengals. And you add him to that offense. They signed Michael Burton. I don't know that we were even trying to bring him back, but PFF, and I know PFF is like a curse word out there to a lot of people, and they tune out if you say it. But PFF, I believe, had him rated as like the second best run blocking fullback in the NFL last year. Of course, it was a small sample size because we didn't use Burton a lot on offense. I already said that. So I like what the Broncos are doing. I also tend to be more optimistic towards the rest of the AFC West and the moves they make, and a lot more skeptical and show me with the Chiefs, which is fine. It kind of balances things out. At the very, it leaves me in a place where the very worst that can happen is I'm right. If I'm wrong and the other teams are worse than I thought they were and we're better than I thought, like that's a good thing. But yeah, that's kind of my take. Like I would agree with that. I thought the Broncos did good. I love every signing we made. And I think that it was hard for us that we had players who were good, but not good enough to get a contract offer from us that they wanted. I don't know if Brett Veach made offers to every free agent we lost, but I think he had a much better beat on this market than the players we lost did. But yeah, what do you guys think on that? 'Cause that's just my take on it. is that Brett Veach had a much better beat on this market than players we lost. And I'll get into the McCole Hardman thing here in a second, guys. But yeah, Gooch,
Yes, sir.
can hear you. How are you doing, man?
I am well, brother. How are you?
It is great to hear your voice, brother.
It's been a rough one, man. 50% off week. No, Daryl, I was not on the throne. I actually had to work today, believe it or not. And it's hard for someone so pretty to actually have to sweat, but I had to do it today.
Notice he said pretty, not handsome.
I was listening because my phone was being funny, and you were talking about free agency, and I find it interesting that that Veach hasn't addressed wide receiver. And I know that everybody's like D Hopper OBJ, D Hopper OBJ. You got one receiver coming off of two ACLs and one that's 31 coming off of PED suspension. And I just want to toss out there, just real quick, for the same price as D Hop, the Broncos are shopping Jerry Jeudy, still on a rookie contract, and all it takes is a second. I just think that's kind of interesting. And if I'm Veach, I'm probably kicking the tires on it. Now,
You
of course, Denver's not going to try and trade him to the Chiefs, but I
I
mean,
was going to
they're
say, what do
trying.
you think? What do you think the penalty, like, what do you think the excess fee is for a interdivision trade?
I don't know. You probably. I mean, they could have. I mean, they've paid for that line. They could have a layer.
Well, I mean, they just signed Samaje Perine, so I don't know that they want another running back. I still think the Bengals make sense to me. Or you could go. What do you think about the Saints as a spot for CEH? Go back
Oh,
home.
yeah,
I think the
yeah.
Bengals and the Saints make the most sense. Either back with Burrow or back home.
Well, didn't the Bengals are looks like the front runners for Zeke. I don't know if you want Clyde there also.
Eh, if Zeke goes there, I mean that would be interesting. I guess what he went to Ohio State, right? So
Nope.
that would be the connection. I and maybe it's because you've rubbed off on me, Gooch, but I really thought we would see Zeke go to the Eagles because we've been hearing Eagles, Bengals, and what was the other team? I forget. There's three teams, right? It was Eagles, Bengals.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Now I can't remember the third team either. Can you imagine if he went to the Eagles?
I thought
Oh,
he, I thought the pettiness there, right? Because it's NFC East teams, right? Like,
and that would be what I'd do. I'd sign with the Eagles just to play you twice a year and run all over you.
right, right. That's
We
why. That's why I figured Eagles. But
we could go 2-15 as long as those two are against the Cowboys. I, I'm just curious because he's bringing back people and he's signing all these 1 year deals and strangely enough, I was listening to oh maybe Football Night in America. I could be wrong, but that little podcast and I took a step back and it's the Chiefs are doing things eerily similar to the Patriots when the Patriots had that long run. Like, you had your quarterback, you had your tight end, Gronk, and then Kelsey, of course. And then on the flip side, you had Wilfork or Gerard Mayo, and that's our Chris Jones. You know what I'm saying? And everybody else is just kind of plug and play. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know a lot of people are looking at the Juju deal and like, you didn't want to do that? Juju's on a 40-year-old knee. And what's the chances that he's going to stay healthy a whole season. We're talking about Kadarius Toney, but Juju missed some time too. I just don't know if you pay that kind of money, in my opinion. And bye-bye, Orlando. It was great. Thanks for being our left guard while McKinnon was our left tackle, and making sure we got another Super Bowl.
Oh man, yeah, we haven't really talked about that a whole lot since the Super Bowl, have we? It was fun when people before free agency began here, and I'll go ahead and put this up since it goes right into it. Denver asked thoughts on Orlando leaving. And, before free agency began, there were, I want to be sensitive because believe what you want to as a fan, but there was definitely a segment out there who bought into the Orlando Brown sack numbers, right? It's like, don't look at the sack numbers, look at the pressure numbers and watch the game and understand what's happening, in context. And man, I don't know. Is Aaron with us? Aaron, if you're still in the chat, because I think you were one of the people that was like arguing for Orlando from his numbers getting better as the season went on. And we saw in the playoffs, yeah, they even got better there, but it was because we weren't able to use McKinnon the way we had been using McKinnon as a weapon. As Gooch said, Gooch called him, McKinnon's your left tackle, right? We're chipping with our running back. We're doing all these things to help protect Orlando Brown because we have to protect Pat's ankle because of Orlando Brown. Like, I mean, we're not going to harp on this because I think we've talked over the last year and a half all kinds of stuff about Orlando. And my opinion never changed. My biggest problem was his lack of athleticism. It just didn't give him any more ceiling, in my opinion. And I still believe that. I don't think there's much more potential he can tap into. Playing tennis didn't help him magically get, quicker feet. One of the things I like about Taylor. Now, is Taylor going to be more like Eric Fisher? Is that kind of your thoughts, Gooch? Is he going to be more like Eric Fisher?
Well, he definitely has. Look, he has longer arms than Fisher, and if you watch tape on him, his first step is awesome. He gets back, and he can get his hands out to kind of redirect people, and he doesn't get beat by speed rushers. He actually handled Max Crosby in their game, in Jacksonville's game against the Raiders. He kept him away. Now, of course, that was right tackle, and everybody's going to say, that's right tackle, but tackles practice both positions because in the pinch, which we saw the Super Bowl year that we lost, we moved our right tackle, left tackle because I'm not going to say it's automatic. It's just a different foot placement and a different get back, but those guys practice both sides. And with the head coach that we have, that was an offensive lineman and probably the greatest offensive line coach, or one of the in the history of the game. You got a young, athletic kid who can do it, and if not, move him to right and draft you left. I was actually more surprised that they did that signing because I just assumed sign Taylor Lewan, get a kid, and let him learn, and then there's a franchise. Sign Taylor to a 1-year deal. Okay, so he's not healthy all the time, he hasn't been healthy for a whole season in a couple of years, but maybe you don't need the whole season. Maybe you just need 6 to 8 games until the kids get up to stuff. Kind of like Kyle Long. You know what I'm saying? He didn't play a whole season, but he played a couple games to kind of get us through. And then, the young guys take over. But I kind of like it if it works out. I mean, if Niang is healthy and Niang's the right, and this kid can work out at the left, then You won't have to invest as much into Liang because he's already shown to be injury prone, but you can get him back on a cheap deal. Not to mention, with the left tackle already signed, you can probably go left guard in this draft to get somebody to replace Stanley because he's going to be 30 something, 33. Uh, so you can stretch him for a year or two, pay Creed, pay Trey, and roll into Mahomes' prime with a semi-young line. I think a lot of people look at, I'm kind of bouncing topics, so I'm going to switch to this, but I think a lot of people look at Orlando Brown's numbers and tend to forget that we've got one of the greatest podbacks and escape artists right now in his prime. You're not going to pay Trent Williams numbers for that because that kid is making you look good. And I just want to throw out there just because I'm super duper petty. The last 2 years when Mahomes has gotten hurt, has been coming off Orlando's side of the ball by that guy. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I agree with basically everything you said there, Gooch. I think that if Andy and um Jawan Taylor both, like, if the three of them think that he can play left tackle, I think he's going to be fine. I think the athleticism is going to help out there, and I think that having Joe Tooney next to him, a left guard, is really going to help make that transition easier. You know, I think between Tooney and as you said, McKinnon and the tight ends made Orlando look even better than he did. And I don't know. I found a lot of these former Chiefs press conferences really interesting because one of the things that Orlando talked about was, he tried to justify his performance by talking about us having him play more one on one than he had to with the Ravens, right? And he was kind of complaining about it. But then I heard another clip later on where, he was talking about how he's looking forward to, that he was the best by doing all these one on ones with the Bengals. But you know what? I think this is one of those situations where I think everybody's going to be happy. Um, other than Orlando and his agent because of the money that they lost. But I tweeted out a couple months ago. I don't remember if I said it on the show, but I said then that Orlando is going to look better when he leaves this team. Simply because of what we want to do on offense. Other teams don't do that, right? So, I thought just for that reason that he would look better. Just the way it goes. So, um, now it came out the other day that the Bengals didn't reach out to him, that he or his agent reached out to the Bengals, which I think is interesting. Go ahead, Gooch.
I just called him a traitor.
But uh, yeah, I mean, uh, didn't really care for him as a player to begin with. So, whatever. He's just dead to me. So, you know, uh, yeah. So those are my thoughts on Orlando leaving. Like, anybody who follows me on Twitter knows that it's not just as Bengal fans might think. Chiefs fans are reacting now. Oh, he went to the Bengals, so we're going to hate on him. My hatred of Orlando Brown Jr., as you guys know as regulars, has been steady, and it has been longer than a year. I was sick to my stomach until the moment he signed. Well, until the moment we signed Taylor, I was sick to my stomach that people might be right that we were actually going to bring him back, and that's why we didn't tag him. Because I was caught off guard that we didn't tag him. I thought we would tag him and trade him. Or tag him and draft someone and trade him at the deadline, or tag him and draft someone and start that player at right tackle like we did Eric Fisher year one and then move him over next year. And so when we didn't tag him, I was, it really caught me off guard. And people were like, well, maybe Brett Veach didn't tag him because he knew that we were going to get a deal done. And the thought made me sick to my stomach. Like, I'm sorry, the athletic potential is just not there. I do not want to give somebody who is capped out in their ceiling that kind of money. Like Trent Williams, I will not guarantee anything, but I would have so much more faith that like a 40-year-old Trent Williams would move better than Orlando Brown will ever move. Like the athletic ceiling that Trent Williams has, as long as he doesn't keep going through injury after injury, would allow him to play well into his, I would say, mid to late, 30s, maybe push 40. You guys might think I'm wrong. That's fine. But, to me, it's just the difference in the athletic profile. So I'm actually excited about Taylor cautiously because we still have to see him play on the left side and see that he can do it. But at the end of the day, we don't even know 100% that he's going to play left tackle. Like, we'll have a good idea after the draft. But if a left tackle that the Chiefs really love falls to a spot that Veach can trade up for, you really think? Go ahead.
I was going to say Tyler Steen drops.
Like if someone that Veach Veach and Andy, because if Veach falls in love with someone, he's going to make sure Andy falls in love with them, and probably Veach, Andy, and Andy. If there's someone who drops that they fall in love with, I could easily see them taking that player. Right now, Taylor gives them the ability to not have to like go insane and reach. Right. In a way, they kind of did this with Joe Tooney. They signed Joe Tooney. They miss out on Trent Williams. They signed the announcement of the Joe Tooney deal was like 2 days before the announcement that in the middle of the night that Trent Williams was going to take the 49ers offer. But the Chiefs signed Joe Tooney. They say, oh, yeah, he could play. They basically said he could play anywhere between left tackle and center, right? Anyone remember that? That's what they said. If we need him to play left tackle, he himself even said it. If they need me to play left tackle, I'll play left tackle. They need me to play center, I'll play center. That gave us the ability for the Ravens to not just say, well, you need a left tackle, so, we're going to make you pay up and we're going to make it hurt. No, because if we have to, we can play Joe Tooney there. When the draft came, we didn't have to reach for Creed because if we had to, Joe Tooney could have played there. Not that they would have wanted him to necessarily, or we would have liked it, but they could have if they wanted to. And to me, that's what Taylor is. Maybe it's really likely he does, but, at the same time, if someone falls, I think that's kind of, the way Veach has this set up. If someone falls, they'll take him, but he doesn't want other teams to have that beat on him and know, okay, Brett Veach is looking for a left tackle. So if I want a left tackle, I'm going to have to draft this guy. Or, other teams, if I want a left tackle, I'm going to have to make sure I jump up to blah, blah, blah in order to get my left tackle. As far as I know, we have our left tackle, and maybe we do. But we'll find out, here in a month. So, Denver, I don't know if that actually answered your question on our thoughts of Orlando leaving, but no tears from me. Gooch, do you have any tears? Holly, Daryl, do you guys have any tears?
No, actually, I'm gonna shoot some props his way. First off, I love Jason Dunn. Let me start with that. Chief concerns. If you can check it out, check it out. But Jason said something to the point to where all tackles get a chip. I mean, that's just what it is. And I was thinking in my head, the elite tackles, especially the elite left, don't get a lot of chips because that's where they make their money, proving that they can handle the career pass rushers one on one. Trent Williams didn't get a lot of chips. He was normally out there on an island because the running backs and the receivers were in motion running away from to try and gain an advantage. So, I mean, yes, some chips happen, but we were chipping 60 to 70% of the time. Trent Williams is around 10% because that's what an elite left tackle looks like. Also, too, look, I don't want to poo-poo on Orlando. Everybody's gonna look at that and be like, "Well, the Chiefs are offering him 19 million a year up until that basically full year of like 40 million, and he took the deal for 16 million, but he took a 4-year deal, which means he's going to be eligible for free agency again before he's 30. So you take that 16 mil a year, you prove yourself, and if you get better because you're in a situation where Burrow isn't as fluid as Mahomes, then you parlay that into another major contract. You get a third contract at an elite level. So smart on his part, even if it was less money, and good for us because we've gotten even younger and it might work out for both of us. So no tears, but also I can't be like, oh, you screwed up, blah, 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 blah. That's my take on it.
Well, I mean, I would say though that he got the same 16 million last year, and if he'd signed the contract we offered him, he would have at least got as much as he's making, and he would have entered free agency, got that third contract a year earlier than he's getting it now. So I mean, there's at least that, and that 40 million fluff year on there. Part of that was because he wanted to top Trent Williams. So it's not like Veach went out of his way to make up a fluff contract. He made up the fluff contract that Orlando Brown Jr. wanted because he just wanted the bragging rights, right? I mean, that's players want the bragging rights of having the greatest contract, and that gave him bragging rights of having the highest AAV. And even the signing bonus, if I recall correctly, is within $1 million of the exact same one that we offered him last year. I'd have to look into it more. I just haven't really cared, but off the top of my head,
But
I believe it's about $1 million apart.
I think the problem with that is and I'm maybe it's just me, but the Chiefs culture is team. And, I mean, look, when Devontae signed his deal and Tyreek's agent came and said 30 million is the floor, and Chiefs are like, well, if you want to be one of the highest paid while we're trying to win championships, you can't be here. You know what I'm saying? Orlando wanted to top Trent Williams in money. And if you want my honest opinion, I think the reason why they didn't tag him is because they figured after last year, well, if he didn't take this, we're not even going to try next year. You know what I'm saying? Because the price is just going to go up, especially after we win a Super Bowl. Now you're really going to try and break the bank. You know what I'm saying? And you can't do that. I mean, Mahomes' contract is set up so that the team can switch his salary over to signing bonus and stuff. But that with Mahomes, that's done to put talent around him, not to just turn around and pay one guy a crap ton of money. I mean, he's not after the money; he's after the wins. Chris Jones. I don't want to be the highest paid defensive tackle, but I'll take second, which is still not a small number. You know what I'm saying? But one the Chiefs could do in a contract. You know what I'm saying? Because number one is still Aaron Donald. So we're not. I mean, he's not even saying get remotely close. He just wants to be second.
Right.
And you can stretch that in a contract that Jones will sign. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's team. Jones wants to retire a Chief. Mahomes is here for the next. Well, he's probably going to retire a Chief because they'll end up redoing his contract again. I mean, it's a mindset. You know, if money is the issue, and in my honest opinion, $16 million is generational wealth. You know what I'm saying? Being smart, you can parlay that 60 into 30, and if you can't, I can show you how. Um, but I mean, I'm not mad that he's gone. I think if he would have, it's one of those. It's like being in the prime example. It's like being in the Hall of Fame. How much is that worth? You know what I'm saying? Like you can't stick a number on that. Super Bowl champion, they can't take it from you. How much is that worth in endorsements and speeches and all that stuff when you're done, or even when you're still playing? You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's these guys. Mahomes' agent said that the reason why they were able to do the contract that they did and Mahomes signed off of it is because the money that he can make outside of football is so much more than what he's going to make inside of football that he can afford to take the kind of contract that they've got and still be the 10th highest paid quarterback in the league. You know what I'm saying? Because there's money outside of more money. You know, I think he made 30 million last year and probably cracked 75 in just endorsements. Like I just don't. I mean, I guess get your bag. I'm not mad, but if I'm in a sport where winning is the ultimate goal, I want to win. You know, I want to win a lot.
Yeah.
I went off on a whole tangent. I just wanted to say, hey, everybody, we haven't done these lives in a long time. It's good to see faces or see names that I recognize. Good to see y'all. How's it going? How you doing?
So Daryl says back in his day, they broke legs as kids playing street ball. Daryl, I hope so. And Sean Payton had your old high school coach. Greg Williams was your old high school coach. Greg is who's he the defensive coordinator of? One of the XFL teams, right? Um, Someone remind me in the chat if you remember, but yeah, I'm pretty sure Greg Williams is it. I mean, there's only what 8 teams, so which one is it? It's not the St. Louis one, is it? One of the
So, we,
teams.
so we're taking Donnie Bate to the minor leagues, huh? All right.
I swear, one of the teams. Someone can tell me in the chat. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he's a defensive coordinator, one of the XFL teams there. Holly says the wide receiver market was so crazy last season. I wonder if Veach et al. Are trying to be patient so we don't overpay. I mean, I think the thing is once the market, I don't think it took long this year to correct itself, right? And we still saw deals that I think most of us would have taken, right? Like last year, the Christian Kirk deal threw a loop and it just threw a wrench into everything. Like it was a stupid deal. But how many deals have we seen this year? Not even like subjectively, based off of last year. You know, have we looked at and said, I would have done that deal if I was Veach? I think we've seen a few of them this year that pretty decent receivers out there that, yeah, I would have taken that deal. But, as Gooch said, probably some merit there that Veach is concerned about Juju's legs and I mean they know about McColl's you know core injury or whatever it was more than any of the rest of us, and I mean, I guess now that I've spoken about McColl, Gooch, did you happen to come across McColl's press conference, or at least the clip where a reporter asked him if the Chiefs had even made an offer?
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh man, listen, there's some people out there that say, players, they just hear from their agent who the winning team is, right? Who the team, what the team is that's willing to pay them the most money. They don't hear any of the other offers. And here's my response to that. If that is true, okay, that's dumb. If you are coming from the team that's won 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 years, has arguably, I mean, people are going to argue about where he is, with Tom Brady and Joe Montana, but the best player in today's game, Hall of Fame quarterback, Hall of Fame tight end, Hall of Fame head coach, that's the team you just came from. It would boggle my mind of how stupid you would have to be to not at least ask your agent, hey, where did the Chiefs come in at here? Did they make an offer? Like, who legitimately believes that McCole Hardman did not know whether the Chiefs made an offer or not? Like, my interpretation of that was we didn't make an offer, and he was 100% lying, and he knew it. But because he got caught off guard with that question, he panicked, and he just started. He had diarrhea of the mouth, basically, or as Gooch would say, the runs of the mouth. Um, yeah, that was my take on it. Gooch, I feel like you're trying to be really kind here, so I'm not going to press you on it. But
Oh no, please allow me. You're a moron. If you don't know, like I know every even in my job, doing what I do, if there is another franchise owner or whatever that wants me to come in and do a job, I know what you're going to pay me, and it may not be the best offer that I take because I've done some studying. I might take the second or third best offer just because it's run properly. You know what I'm saying? And you know if we offered you a contract. Now, I would assume that Brett offered him one that was low and was kind of like, yo, here's your chance to really prove it. We understand you got hurt um, and you missed some games. Even out of loyalty, the fact that you came back and made some really good kind of like season-saving catches in certain games and re-injured yourself. Here's a deal. If, you come back playing an offense that you know, and you can go get your bag, because at the beginning of the year, with the way he was popping off, we just knew he was going to be outpriced. Like he was going to get priced out of our range anyway. And then he got hurt. That's what I would think. But if he legit just didn't, like you need a role model, bro. Because what if the highest offer was the Texans? Is it you just gonna go to Houston and maybe play out your career in purgatory? Like you got an idea.
right.
Also, too, I think a lot of things, and I just thought about this too. We've got some receivers already. I mean, yeah, okay. Andy's like, Sky's going to have to step up. So everybody's wondering if he can stay healthy. There's the myth of Justin Ross running up hills and stuff, looking like he's in shape. There's John Ross, who could be, I don't know how his route running is. I haven't watched him in a couple years, but he still has straight line speed, which you have to be afraid of, so you can stretch the field. And I know that we re-signed Blake Bell, and there was a lot of like, why I was surprised he was going to be back, blah blah blah. You got to remember that our Hall of Fame tight end is 33, and he's gone over 1,000 yards 7 years in a row, and 100 catches twice, and close to 100 catches all the other times. That's a lot of hits. You know what I'm saying? So you bring back Fortson, you bring back Bell, you bring back Gray, guys that know the offense, and maybe you draft one in this draft because the tight ends in this draft are plentiful, and you kind of slowly tick back on Kelsey. Because I'm pretty sure his next deal is probably going to be 2 to 3 years, and he'll probably be done. That's a lot of mileage on that guy at 6'5", 270 pounds, or whatever he is, 240 pounds, sorry. I just really think that Veach is playing the long game. Like I think we got blessed and a little bit of luck that we nailed almost all of those picks in the draft last year. This year is going to be a little bit of that, but more so like because you're playing with house money right now. You won a Super Bowl in the first year with a bunch of rookies. You're playing with house money. So now it's kind of like setting yourself up for 2 years from now. You know what I'm saying? And trying to protect Kelsey and make sure Kelsey goes out gracefully and not like Gronk with a bunch of injuries. Trying to make sure that your $500 million quarterback can reach his prime without an injury. You know, and it's just kind of just piecing it together. And we're still going to win, but I really think he's playing the long game, and he's going to utilize these young receivers, especially if Justin Ross gets a clean bill of health. That's a kid who, if he does, is just as electric as Tony. There's your Hardman. You know, that's just my opinion. I was rambling. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Yeah, you know what? I think that players like I think McCole Hardman saw the Christian Kirk contract last year, and he got that contract stuck in his head. I think that a lot of our free agents they saw somebody's contract last year and they got that contract stuck in their head. And I don't think it was just our free agents. It seemed like there were a lot of free agents this year who got reportedly got better offered better deals from their team, turned those deals down, and now got stuck with a lesser 1 year deal because the team immediately moved on. Like, you're not going to hold us hostage. We're not going to, just because the team was stupid last year, we're not going to be stupid. Like, we're not, if you want that contract, go out there and find the person who's that stupid, but it's not going to be us. I think there was a lot of that this year.
The weird thing is, all of the teams are like that. There hasn't been, like last year was like everybody went crazy. And this year, like most of those bad contracts, like they just reworked Tyreek's contract because they realized there was way too much money. And now teams are falling back to the, hey, here's a salary cap. We can't pay these guys. This is the market. You know what I'm saying? I think what got everybody up in a tizzy and why that market blew up is when was the last time two alpha receivers like Tyreek and Devontae Adams were up for grabs? You know what I'm saying? I mean, usually you get that one guy, right? Like one guy probably in 2 or 3 positions that is, you'd be like, oh, that's, they've got a name, Tyreek or Devontae. Like they're one-name guys, AD in Los Angeles. Those guys don't come up. So then when they did, everybody was throwing money at them. Now, I don't know about the Deshaun thing. That's completely different. He hadn't played in a year and a half. But, I mean, now, like you said, the market has come back. and everybody's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go be a free agent," and let's take Juju. I'm sure the Chiefs threw a deal at him that was like, 2 years with avoidable third for this much money. You know what I'm saying? Get a chance to run it back. And he's like, no, I'll take the 3 year deal over here. The problem is Bill Belichick is one of those people that after 1 year, if you ain't cutting it, he'll take the cap hit. He don't care. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm happy that it came back down. I'm glad that people were seeing like, oh, I'm like you said, oh, they got this contract last year. I'm for sure gonna get more than that. And nope. Even out of the tackles, Trent Williams is what, 36? Nobody's still close to his money. Oh wait, I'm sorry, Tunzel is, but that guy's an elite left tackle and he's 10 years younger. You know what I'm saying? I would pay him that kind of money. I don't know why he took it to stay in Houston, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know either. Yeah, Trent Williams is 34. He'll be 35 this year. So you're basically right on the mark there, though.
And Maui, I'm usually never wrong on predictions, bro. I should stop calling them predictions. I should just start calling them spoilers.
Anthony, glad to have you in here. I don't know if you've been in here before, but Anthony says last year Casey was checking in on AJ Brown. They were also checking in on Kadarius Toney last year as well, right? Thinking maybe Veach is looking at one of these young wide receivers that are about to get a contract, Judy, T. Higgins, etc. Yeah, I mean, I think the problem here is kind of back when Gooch threw out the Jerry Judy name is like, I don't think these teams, especially an AFC West team, I don't think the Bengals or the Bills, I don't think you're going to see any of those four teams trading with the Chiefs. All right. I could be wrong on that. The Bengals GM has already came out, sure makes it sound like he's going to try to keep Burrow, Chase, and Higgins together. I don't know how he's going to do that. Especially when we keep hearing that Burrow and his agent aren't taking any discount and Burrow is going to get paid. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know on that one. But, man, there's a lot of noise out there that Burrow is going to be the top paid quarterback, and he's not taking any discount. Those inside of the jungle believe the exact opposite is true. So, I mean, one of the two is going to be proven truthful. But yeah, I don't think we're getting any of these players unless they actually make it to free agency. These ones anyway. But I don't even know. I don't know if there's a team out there, even a team that's probably not a contender that would. Maybe as the season goes on, week 8 or so, you have that happen. But with the 17th game, and the way some of these divisions are, like we saw Tampa Bay last year, you don't have to win 9 or 10 games to necessarily win your division if you're in one of those divisions. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would think if we got to that place, an interesting name would be Kyle Pitts, simply because the way he's been used in Atlanta the last couple of years. So you've used up those 2 years. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe, Veach he has his plans. He has his names. He has his players, he's liked. We hear that every year, right? They liked Kadarius Toney in the draft. They knew they wouldn't get him. They've been trying to get him multiple times over the last year or so. So, there's a lot that we clearly don't hear about that goes on behind the scenes, and you just don't hear about it until it actually happens. So, yeah, there's definitely something out there, that is probably Veach is working on. Doesn't mean, he'll get it, but Yeah, I'm sure he's definitely working on things. Um, Holly says, honestly, don't know what our cap space is right now, though. And each source is different, Holly. I think the last one I said was around Saul was around 5 million, 5.5 million, something like that. All right, so Daryl, you had Greg Williams as your head coach, and he was not. He basically hasn't changed in how long ago was that? 20, 25, 30 years ago? How long ago was the Bounty Gate thing? That's been a while, hasn't it? Be interested to trace how he made his way from high school head coach to NFL defensive coordinator, especially someone who's a jerk. But I guess as long as you do your job well enough. Daryl thinks the Sky will do all right in Juju's place. I mean, I don't think that they're going to be used even close to the same way, but yeah, we'll see what he does. I hope he takes a step forward. Juju came right in, and to me, and I believe Gooch agrees with this, took a lot of the pressure off of Travis. And I don't know. Like I said at the beginning of the show, with Kadarius Toney, I don't think there's anyone out there who truly questions his ability, right? When he's healthy, what he can do. Very dynamic player. I don't think anyone questions that. It's just the matter of can he stay healthy, or is he going to be more like a very cheap Sammy Watkins for us for the next few years, to where there's gobs of talent and he just can't stay healthy. I'm rooting for the optimist to be right, but I'm too much of a realist at heart. So Holly says, I know Orlando has argued that there's much more to playing left tackle than athleticism, but don't think he proved it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's the muscle memory aspect of it. It's doing everything opposite foot and hand. Um, in Orlando's case, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't even think I would have been comfortable with him playing right tackle for the Chiefs. And Gooch, you can jump in and tell me that I'm dumb, but the more I've thought about this, even if he'd wanted to come back and we would have been willing to let him come back as a right tackle, I think I would have been just as concerned, because where does Pat like to scramble to? Generally he likes to scramble to his right side. And if you have Orlando there letting people beat him that quickly, you know, yeah, the left side's his blind side, but he has a pretty good sense of pressure. And to me, like, you don't want the right tackle getting beat that quickly. And, at the end of the day, I'm fine with Andrew Wiley going, but at the end of the day, Wiley was the guy who was facing the more premier pass rushers than Orlando was, because teams saw him as the weak link. And so I I just don't think it mattered. Taylor played a handful of snaps on the left side last year. I'm assuming that Andy and Brett saw something, that led them to believe, he's fully capable of playing the left side, right? And so if they're comfortable with it, I guess I have to be. But all I know is this. Yeah, I would agree there's much more to playing left tackle than athleticism, but I would also argue that you have to have at least an ounce of athleticism, right? Like, to me, Orlando's game was predicated on the fact that he has long arms and is apparently strong. Like, that's it. Long arms, and strong. Like that's all he had. Like I don't know if you
Well,
guys ever.
and but
I was just gonna say I don't know if you've ever really watched snaps of Orlando, but he's so tall. Like the way he has to move back in the pocket, like the way he moves back, it just scares me. Like it looks so unnatural. Like dude, so it just I don't know. I was very afraid of a long term contract just watching how he moves.
well, first I want to give Andrew Wiley his props. That man went and finally earned his contract. I mean, undrafted or late round, signed a bunch of 1 year deals, and he finally got like some real security. So shout out to him for that. Appreciate all that he's done, even though in my eyes I viewed him as the weak link, but not weak as in like scrubby. Like he could hold his own at times, just wasn't as strong as the three guys next to him. You know what I'm saying? Now, as far as Orlando goes, again, or Orlando, he probably would be an elite left tackle in a different era. You know what I'm saying? Like, but you had to block for Lamar, which, Lamar was at the height of his powers then. So you could take a 3 step drop, and all of a sudden you could stop blocking because he's already past the line of scrimmage and gone. Um, and I think it's hard when you're a big guy, kind of plodding guy like that, to block for a guy who can hold the ball for 8 seconds, and you have to maintain your blocks that whole time. You know what I'm saying? When you're not used to it, and also because he's so tall and the way he had to move, a lot of speed rushers aren't. What is he? 6'7", 6'8"?
Yeah, like 6'8".
Like a lot of the guys he's playing against aren't that tall. So now you have to kind of stay in a squat and in a position that isn't of power for you or isn't a position of strength for you, which is why these guys who can get low fast get around him, because it doesn't matter if you have long arms if I can get lower than you, faster than you, and beat you to your spot. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I think it'll be a good thing for him, because Joe Burrow is more, and I'm only using this as a reference. He's Tom Brady-esque in the sense that he's really a pocket quarterback. You know what I'm saying? When he snaps the ball, you already have an idea of where he is, and he's not going to deviate from that much. He's going to try and get the ball out. So this will be good for him, and I think Taylor, with his athleticism, like I said, you don't play right tackle in the NFL without taking snaps at left, even in practice. Because in an emergency situation, even if you have a backup left tackle, in an emergency situation, you want your starter to kind of flip over there because he's going to be stronger than your backup.
Right.
So it may take a little work to get him accustomed, but if I'm not going to say in Beach we trust, but in Andy, when it comes to offensive lineman, that's me. If Andy sees it and thinks him and Heck can do it, I'm going to trust Andy. That guy's an O-line guy. You know what I'm saying? That's where I'm at. And we can stop talking about Orlando. I hate dragging that topic out. You know what I'm saying? I wish he would have stayed as a right tackle, maybe. Um, but again, I say, zero sacks is great when your left tackle's your running back. You know what I'm saying? And every time that my quarterback has been hurt, he's been on that side of the ball, letting the guy that hurt him through.
Yeah, and I know there's a lot of people out there that said Orlando did his job on this play and this play and this play. Pat just held on to the ball too long or whatever. And I guess my biggest argument is okay, if that's what you believe, that's fine. But for our offense, we need an offensive tackle that can do that. And I've talked about it as like two phases, if you want to call it that. All right, there's the first phase, the initial drop back, did the player do his job protecting? Okay, that's great. Now after that is the part that we need our offensive tackles to continue to block for Mahomes. He's the best player in the NFL. You got to still protect him in that second phase. Okay, this is where Orlando was generally good because, as Gooch said, he had the reach in the first phase. The second phase, he didn't have the feet to make up for anything to block Mahomes. Now, maybe listen, if you want to say that's not what an offensive tackle should have to do, that's fine. But our offense is different, and that's my biggest argument against that. So for our team, that was not a great fit because we need someone who can step up and block in that second phase as well. And some of the times in the first phase, Mahomes had to hold the ball as long as he did because there was way too quick a pressure and he couldn't get the throw off that he wanted to. And then the guy got covered.
Go ahead.
All I'll say about Taylor, is one of the things I heard this last week from it was like Thunder Dan, I think, talking about, if Taylor could play left tackle, he would have played left tackle in college, or when the left tackle was hurt, he would have got moved over to left tackle instead of the backup in college. And one of the things I pointed out is, does anybody know who the really great left tackle was for the Iowa Hawkeyes that pushed Tristan Wirfs to right tackle? Tristan Wirfs played right tackle at the University of Iowa. The Buccaneer, arguably the best right tackle in the game now, and the Buccaneers are supposedly moving him to left tackle. Do you know who the left tackle was at the University of Iowa who kept him out of being the left tackle that forced him to the right side? A player by the name of Alaric Jackson, who is a backup player for the Rams right now. So just because, you can't go back and make college arguments. In no way would anybody who has seen Alaric Jackson play in the NFL or Tristan Wirfs play in the NFL ever confuse the two in the amount of talent and ability they have. I think if anyone can play left tackle, I think we know that Tristan Wirfs has everything. We still have to see the muscle, like those differences, but everything else, every other part of it, he has down. And I don't think anyone would argue that. So that's my argument with, if Veach and Andy think that Taylor can move over, I don't think you can just look at college and, make that argument. Well, they didn't trust him in college. Well, he did play a little left tackle in college, and he went up against Brian Burns and didn't seem to have a problem.
Let me knock out a couple of these real quick. Daryl 88. Is that the Frank Gans Chiefs? I would be, I think, Rod West defense. George somebody offense. I might be wrong about that. But that was around the time that I actually started getting into Chiefs football, running around the stadium and stuff. But I think I might be close. Also, Holly, yeah, he felt uncomfortable in the pocket, but I think those were Super Bowl jitters from where he ran around for so long. I don't think he would have trusted, and a super elite offensive line in the beginning, just because of what he endured. And when you get back there and you remember, and the last game you remember is running for 500 yards behind a makeshift offensive line and getting hit every which way, he probably wasn't comfortable, and he still needed to work on his game. Like he had still had, I said several times, his footwork was a problem. So then he had the footwork problem, and he got antsy, uh, happy feet in the pocket, and wanted to take off. Um, yeah, that's where I'm at. I just wanted to hit a couple of those because I saw Daryl ask the question. It was a really good one. It made me think. Because I was like, wait, isn't that Marty? But I don't think it was Marty. I think it was right before Marty.
Yeah, we'll try to push through here, guys, and get caught up here. I'm not sure how much longer we'll go, but Holly says, so you think Orlando's agent reached out to the Bengals knowing they were our major AFC rival? I think that's a big chunk of that. I don't know. Maybe he actually wanted to go to a contender, right? One of the names we kept hearing for Orlando was the Bears. The Bears have all this cap room. They have offensive line needs. A lot of people were connecting Orlando to the Bears. So, maybe he told his agent, "Hey, I want this to be someone, if we can, that's still in the playoffs every year." So maybe that's it. Maybe the Bears were the only offer. We don't know. And so maybe he said, "Hey, go find out if the Bengals are willing to do this." If you ask Bengals fans, he's an improvement over Williams, the left tackle they had. So, you know, maybe he felt the same way. And before he signed with the Bears, I mean, we don't know. All we can do is speculate there. But the report that came out was someone wanted to make it clear the Bengals didn't reach out to Orlando. Orlando and his team reached out to the Bengals. So maybe that was to try to get at Chiefs Kingdom. I don't know.
No, yeah, because Super Bowl champions always get poached. And I'm sure he reached out with, well, they won't treat me good. I'm sure you guys will. I would love to block for Joe Burrow. I really respect him, yada, 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 yada. And the Bengals looked at it as well, if we can take the Chiefs starting left tackle, that puts, a hurt on them. And maybe we gain some ground in this, what could be rivalry. You know what I'm saying? Even if I would be, but see, that's petty me talking because I would sign somebody like Orlando and then draft me a kid and put Orlando on the bench after 8 games. and not because he sucks. Not because he sucks, but if I got a chance to get like we had just discussed, if an elite left tackle kind of drops down the board and he's there for me to pick, then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, you'll be an expensive backup after a while, but I've got a kid on 5 years on a rookie scale. Your time's already numbered. Start the clock. But that's just me. I'm the petty one. So don't listen to me.
Well, apparently multiple of us are petty. Holly says he just didn't seem all in on the team. 5.85 time. Yeah, and I think the thing is, I don't think that time got any quicker in any way whatsoever. I don't think, tennis made it better. And again, it's just and as Gooch said though, right? That's running forward. 5.85 running forward, right? And 40 times don't necessarily mean a whole lot, but the reality is, as an offensive lineman, unless you're run blocking, how often are you getting that way? But the biggest thing is like Gooch said, because of the way he had to bend down to even attempt to block someone, pass or run block, right? It puts you in kind of this awkward position. Like, I don't know how many of you guys are friends with people who are really tall, but I've known people who are really tall that end up like with hunched backs because they're so like emotionally connected and not being, of trying to put themselves at the level of the people that they're hanging around the most, you know, and it's like it's just an awkward height for him to be at. So, 40 time, that's not even telling us how much slower he is when, he's kind of leaning over and putting his body an unbalanced position because he's doing it and backpedaling. Like the feet are slow. He might as well have cement. He might as well be wearing boots with cement inside of them. And Gooch said, he's done talking about Orlando. So, I'm just going to go through these really quick here. So, Terrell says he's all right with a running back, quarterback, which is funny, Daryl. I saw someone made a meme of Mahomes handing the ball off to Lamar and suggested that's the reason the Veach hasn't been spending money on wide receivers, which I thought was funny.
Oh man, could you imagine that?
Some of
That'd be
us probably did it
amazing.
in Madden.
I got one last thing on that. I have a friend who's 6'8", and squatting is one of the things he hated to do because it's rough on your body to get down that low when you're that tall. I mean, I'm tall for a guy. I'm 6'2", but he's 6'8", and he hated squatting just to get underneath the sink in his house because it's rough.
Right.
Imagine doing that for 60 plays a game and then going backwards as fast as you can. It's going to be rough,
Yeah. Holly asked.
Hold on. I was going to say, good point, Keys. I think they should make that part of the combine. If you're going to make linemen run forward, I need to see what their speed is going backwards, because 70% of the time you're going to be backing up. So I want to know what your speed is like getting to a spot in front of a defensive end that's trying to run around the edge and get your quarterback. Hey, we should start a petition.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of the drills that they put them through, they get that information. Um, I don't know if you watched the New Heights, the latest episode of New Heights podcast, but Jason interviewed Rich Eisen on there, right? So they were talking about, he got talking about how he got into covering the combine and, the first ever time he ran the 40 and how that came about. And they were talking about the 40 and the different things in the events. And one of the things that Rich Eisen talked about was, like as far as the 40-yard dash is concerned, teams don't really care about it. Like they're not, obviously Al Davis and the Raiders did, but they're not, like that's not their focus. Like the way Rich Eisen talked about the 40 was the 40 is a fan event. Like when teams put players through different drills, the fans don't necessarily understand what they're looking for, right? He was talking about, the offensive linemen. One of the drills they have the offensive linemen do, right, is they lay on their backs, right? They start the drill by laying on their backs. If you guys have seen the combine, you probably know what I'm talking about. They have the offensive linemen lay on their backs, and then they like blow the whistle or say hike or whatever, and the offensive lineman jumps up as fast as they can. And one of the things he says, like, I think Jason was talking about that. Like what they're looking for is like the offensive lineman's the ability for his hips to sink. That's why they start out lying on their back, and then they flip over and jump up as fast as they can. So like the teams know what they're looking for in all these different drills, but you or I, we're John Q fan is watching it. We don't understand. Like we don't know what the purpose of this drill is. Whereas the 40-yard dash, every fan can understand, and appreciate it. Like they understand, guy run 40 yards, guy run fast, like like in the most simplistic terms. And so, yeah.
A 40-yard dash hasn't been fun since Dion walked in joggers, ran a 4.19, and then ran out of the stadium.
Holly, to answer your question, I do not know. It's not something I was interested in. It might be something that we have to look up for next time. Um, how the highest graded left tackles from the past year have fared as rookies. I don't know off the top of my head. Gooch, maybe you know. I know for me, it's not something that I even got into.
Nope.
So I'm going to screenshot your question so I have it here as a record, Holly, and I'll try to look it up so next time we can talk about it a little bit. Holly says, no tears for me. I wanted to believe in Orlando, but just didn't live up to the expectations for the price he was expecting. I thank him for his contributions, though. That sounds very nice and lovely, Holly. Much kinder than me. But, Gooch is my friend, so I am a little petty. And, in the words of Kevin O'Leary to Orlando, you're dead to me. Like, that's it. You went to the Bengals. I didn't care if you went off to any other team, but kind of like trying to throw up the middle finger as you walk out the door because you're not on the team of your own doing, just kind of like strikes me the wrong way. So, especially with all the crap from the Bengals and their fans in the playoffs, like, I mean, in a way, this feels like Neil Smith going to the Broncos. Throw out some more for me, Gooch. It. Yeah, that's just my thoughts.
Rich Gannon to the Raiders.
Yeah, but I mean that was more of our fault. Like, I don't know how you felt, but of the quarterbacks we had in that room, Rich Gannon always felt like the best one. Like we let the best one walk, and we as fans knew it. But I was never a Steve Bono fan, so I mean. Yeah.
Well, see, now that drags us into a conversation about old King Carl Peterson. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody knew Gannon was the guy. He led that team to 13-3, and then they bench him for the first playoff game. Come on, man.
Yeah. Daryl says Lamar Jackson as a running back is over. I mean, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, if he's back with the Ravens, and if he is, like what the contract is. Yeah, you know, it's really hard. Like, Lamar is a fun player to watch, obviously very dynamic, and I do think that he had been improving as a passer. I think it's really hard, and this kind of goes back into the contract discussion. I think it's really hard though, team building in the NFL, when all these teams with, don't get me wrong when I use this phrase, but unproven quarterbacks. And what I mean that is in the sense of they don't have the rings on their fingers, right? When you get these guys that you're having to give their second contract and they haven't got that first Super Bowl, like I think it just makes it that much harder, because you hear everyone talk about winning during a quarterback's rookie contract, and you get to the second contract and they don't have a ring, or in most of their cases, other than Burrow at this point now, and Jalen Hurts and Joe Burrow, they haven't even made it to a Super Bowl. I think it puts the team in a really difficult position. They were already going to be in a difficult position. The Eagles are going to be in a difficult position. The Bengals are going to be in a difficult position when they have to pay Burrow, when the Eagles have to pay Hurts. And so those teams at least have made a Super Bowl in the last 2 years. So what about the teams who haven't? What about a team like the Chargers? What are they going to do? I think it makes it that much harder for them. I think it makes it that much harder for the Ravens. You haven't seen Lamar lead his team to an AFC championship game, let alone an AFC championship victory, let alone a Super Bowl. And you have to make a decision whether you're going to pay him 40, 50, 60 million dollars. And I'm not saying that as a slight on, Lamar, and I understand, for these players, it's not necessarily, fair. It's not necessarily fair to Austin Eckler that he's a great running back, but he's playing a position that just it's so easily replaceable. Lamar's not playing a position that's easily replaceable, but he doesn't seem to have the value to teams that he thinks he does. So, I mean, I don't know. He stopped running in the playoffs the last couple of years. I think what was it? It was Ed Reed, right? What was it? 2 years ago now? 3 years ago? When did we face the Ravens? I don't think we faced them because was it the Titans that knocked them out in the playoffs. Ed Reed had been talking to Lamar, and basically told him, "Hey, you got to think of yourself first," is basically what Ed Reed told him. And Lamar never looked the same in the playoffs after Ed Reed came out and told him that. So, I mean, you take from it what you will, but that's what I took from it.
Well, it's because he's not utilizing what made him special. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're holding one of 32 jobs that only the top 1% of athletes ever get to play in. And Ed Reed is telling you to think about yourself, and I get that. Think about yourself, but if you're worried about it, put some muscle on. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think you miss a lot of leg days, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? And it could be not even just Ed Reed. He has a terrible agent because she's worried about protecting her baby. And I'm sure in his ear, he's like, you need to be more like Mahomes and Josh Allen and these guys that have special arms or, something about them. Like Joe Burrow doesn't have a magical arm, but like Mahomes, he's a sociopath. He doesn't get excited when things get hairy. He's just calm and let's go through this. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have those qualities, but you know what you can do? You run 40 yards in 4.2 seconds and are generally faster than anybody on a field. You can make them look silly. Work on your passing, but start with, short crossers. Don't try to hit the home runs. Use your legs. There's nothing wrong with that. Russell Wilson made a career out of that before he came to Denver, and he wasn't even the fastest guy. But you had to respect that run, and then he perfected his deep ball. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and he got paid. There's niches out here that you could settle in, and sometimes you just get lucky, and you might luck up in a Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's just what I think. I think he's getting bad advice. And I also think the reason why he isn't signed yet is because, one, nobody wants to give out guaranteed contracts, and two, if somebody else does the contract, the Ravens are just going to match it. They really just stuck it out there because Lamar wants 200 guaranteed, and the Ravens are like, go see if you can get it. Right. If you can get it, we'll pay it. But you turned down 133 guaranteed. Now, maybe it's because I come from modest upbringings and such, but 133 million guaranteed is a lot of money. And I could take care of my family, your family, my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids with that kind of bread. You know what I'm saying? I don't get it. Hey Brian, we want you to come. Tell you what, we want you to come play this game that everybody loves playing. We're going to give you 133 million guaranteed. Where's the line at? I need to sign on.
Yeah, I think one that you can't. I think the only thing worse than representing yourself is having your mom be your agent. Like for me, the one of the biggest reasons you shouldn't ever represent yourself is, unless you have an ability to not take things personally, which is super hard, right? It's even worse for your mother. You know what I mean? Like it just it's so hard to not take it personally. And as a GM, you're going to shoot straight on why the player's evaluation of their value is wrong. And that's just the way it is.
Well, yeah, take like Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has an agent. They went in and told the Giants they wanted more money than what Mahomes was making this year. They looked at him, and this is actually in an article. You can read it. They laughed at him and said, "Hey, you're not Mahomes." You know what I'm saying? Like, so cut that off the table. You're not making more than Mahomes. And then they eventually settled on 36 mil. Now, I haven't seen the whole contract, but I'm sure they've got some get out if he doesn't perform well with Dayball. But they had to give him that money because what's the alternative? Are you going to outbid the Saints for Derek Carr? Are you going to get in on the Aaron Rodgers sweepstakes? And I just want to throw this out there because I have seen it in Twitterverse. Is that what it's called? Um, that Lamar can't. Daniel Jones can get 36 million, but Lamar can't. Blah 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 blah. It's all about keeping the black man down. Yada yada yada. Look, the highest paid quarterback in the NFL is a black guy. Deshaun Watson got 250 million guaranteed. He's a black guy. Russell got over 200 million. He's a black guy. So before you throw any of those things out there, because Lamar won't, or nobody's offering Lamar that kind of money, it's not because he's black. He hasn't proven anything. He wins 70% of his games, Brian. Yeah, regular season. You know what that makes him? Peyton Manning before he actually learned how to beat Tom Brady. I just wanted to cover that because I'm tired of seeing everything become race. That's just it irks me. So sorry, Keith. Go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I keep throwing out there is there's only one quarterback who deserves a fully guaranteed contract, and he doesn't have one. But again, I think it goes back all these players in free agency this year. And I'm not saying that they're being completely illogical, because again, they looked at last year, right? It makes sense. You look at last year, if you're a receiver, you see what Christian Kirk got, right? If you're a quarterback, you look at what Deshaun got, right? And then you look at the salary cap going up this year, and you could put two and two together, and you could believe you deserve to get paid, X, Y, or Z, right? I mean, there's a bit of logic to it, but the problem is that, and I kind of had some of this discussion with our friend Avery. Part of the problem is when you are getting your value from a contract number, right? You have to understand your value as a player is whatever the market says it is, right? I can, whatever it is in life, if I'm a woodworker, I can make something out of wood. I wish I was, but I'm not a woodworker, right? Or if I was a metal worker, or if I was an artist and I did amazing paintings or portraits or whatever. It doesn't matter what I think what I have made is worth, right? It doesn't even matter if the labor and the materials I've used are worth X amount. The fact of the matter is it's only worth whatever someone will pay for it. And that's a really hard for, people to accept. Is it right? I mean, the difference is I don't have to sell something I made if I don't want to. As an NFL player, what are your options? You know, and so I don't want to be completely insensitive to a player or players in general, but the fact of the matter is we don't know 100% what Lamar has said. But one of the biggest things that I've said is what was out there, right? What we all heard was he wanted 200 million guaranteed. Lamar's move at that point should have been to make it clear to everyone if indeed he wasn't looking for 200 million guaranteed, which is an insane amount. Deshaun Watson's contract was an insane amount. And people also want to throw out that Kirk Cousins has gotten 2 fully guaranteed deals now. Never mind, they've been 2-year deals, right? NFL owners don't have a problem going shorter contracts guaranteed for a quarterback. They don't mind going 2 years. Maybe 3 years is pushing it, right? But you're not going to get that kind of money guaranteed. Again, Mahomes is the only quarterback out there worth a fully guaranteed contract. And it's not even fathomable. Just because the Browns were stupid last year and gave Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed contract doesn't mean another owner, another GM should do the same. And it doesn't mean when it doesn't happen that it's collusion, right? It's not collusion when 31 teams, well, it's not even, first off, it's not 31 teams, right? Because how many teams are in the market for a quarterback? How many don't have an elite quarterback to begin with, right? So first off, it's not 32 teams, 31 teams, right? It's more like what? Maybe 10 to 15 teams, maybe 20. So say 20 teams. 20 people who are smart and good with their money don't have to meet together to talk strategy about not being stupid, if that makes sense. Right? You don't have to get in a room and say, "Hey, let's not be stupid this year." If you're smart, you're not going to be stupid, plain and simple. Just because they might all come to the same conclusion because it's the right conclusion it's not proof that they met together and purposely decided to not do it. But if they did, I would say they did it for the whole NFL and all of free agency.
Also, the Kirk Cousins contract, 3 years, $87 million, fully guaranteed. Okay, but you know what that is? Middle of the pack money for a middle of the pack quarterback, which is exactly what Minnesota knew they were buying. So they bought a middle of the road quarterback, top 15 to 18, and he was going to have some good days and he was going to have some bad days. And they knew what they were getting. The problem with Lamar is he's missed 10 out of the last 22 games. Now, I'm sure the Ravens would bow down and be like, "You only want $22 million a year? Sure. We'll give you a 3-year deal and we'll guarantee that. That's $66 million. We'll give you, $4 million extra, whatever, say 70. You want to sign that?" They'll run over backwards, but you can't use that Kirk Cousins deal because nobody looked at Kirk Cousins' contract and goes, 3 years, $87 million, fully guaranteed. Yeah, that's about right. And that's when I saw it initially, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Because it's 15 to 18 money. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what it is. But you could be a top. I actually think you're a top 10 quarterback right now, but you can't stay healthy. And the greatest ability in the NFL is availability. You know what I'm saying? So if you're missing 10 out of 22 games, almost half the games, because you're injured, why am I going to give you $200 million when I just watched the quarterback have a third-degree ankle sprain and play through the entire playoffs? You know what I'm saying? Or, those guys that continue to play. Purdy, look, I got to give that kid credit. He didn't have an arm, and he was still out there trying to play to the point to where he was on the sideline trying to throw left-handed to see if he could. Like, those guys I pay money to, because when the going gets tough, that team is going to follow that guy's lead. Right now, all you're showing is you're not a leader. You just want the money. And maybe that's not you. Maybe that's Ma Dukes in your ear. You know what I'm saying? Telling her, baby, you need to get as much money as you can, but you're going about it all wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah, it could be. Like I said,
Before you finish that thought, and it can't be colluding, because I wouldn't pay you're behind $200 million guaranteed either, even if I had it. So maybe I'm colluding against you.
yeah, I try to understand where people are coming from there. And Gooch, I know that you know that because you work, saving businesses. Like, you understand that. Too many people come at this from like a fan perspective, and they only try to think of it from a player perspective, right? Like, they don't think of it from a, if I was a business person, would I make this decision or not? They only think of it from a, if I was a player, would I want that money, right? Would I be mad that a team's not giving me that money? And so, which is fine, but try to think of it from both sides of things, because if you do, you'll quickly understand why it's not colluding. Because if it was your money and you had any kind of intelligence at all, you wouldn't offer that contract. Not just to that player, but to basically every player not named Patrick Lavon Mahomes the second. That's kind of the point. But a lot of fans don't even bother to try to think through it that way. They just get stuck in, that whole mindset of things. So
Here's a prime example. I'm not behind the curtain, but I'm gonna give you an idea of behind the curtain. 70% of these owners that you guys think are filthy rich, the football team is their business. They're not the Waltons. They're not the Johnsons in New York. They're not the Mars who have a whole lot of family money. Like the Hunts and some of these other teams, like the Chiefs or a sports team, is their business. So when you take a contract like that from a guy, like let's just say Clark decided he was going to sign Lamar, and he was going to get $130 million in guaranteed money. They have to take that $130 million and put it in an escrow account, and the owner is responsible for the signing bonuses. Like, that comes out the owner's pocket. Signing bonuses come out of the owner's pocket. It's not the contract. The contract is what it is. But when you see $30 million in signing bonus, that's the owner's money. You know what I'm saying? So some of these guys can't afford to say, put $135 million, $200 million in an escrow account and let it sit because you owe this kid that money. You know what I mean? And if they do happen to do that, they have to raise prices on a lot of other stuff to make up for that money, to make sure that that bottom line is in the positive. Now, the NFL has never been more popular, but please understand that a lot of their income is TV divided up amongst the 32 teams. Like, our fans don't keep the Chiefs running. They help, but they don't keep them running. You know what I'm saying? So before you get mad because it's like, oh, they're colluding or yada, 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 keep in mind, they got to look at this bottom line. They have 53 players that they have to pay, some of them with a lot of guarantees. And you can easily go negative during the season and hope that your team makes the playoffs or the Super Bowl to kind of bring you back positive to cover any losses that you had. So before, and that's business 101. I got to make money or I got to move the team or sell it. You know what I'm saying? And so before you get mad or think of it as Keith said, as a fan or as a player, why am I not getting that money? Look at this too. It may seem like these guys are filthy rich. They're not. Look at Mark Davis. He's the poorest owner in the league. He's struggling to keep the Raiders afloat because these guys that he has to pay, if they're not successful, they're not profitable. You know what I'm saying? He could lose everything. These guys aren't as well off, and so they have to do things and write these contracts in order to not break the bank. You know, extensions take a long time because they probably already got their figure figured out, the number they want to offer, but 2 years down the line, is this really going to hurt? You know what I'm saying? When we have to bring up and sign these other guys. I just went off on a whole tangent, but that's what I look at doing what I do, where I go. Can this store be saved? And why is it losing money? You know what I'm saying? What can I do to trim the fat to make sure that every month this store has some kind of profit to keep the lights on? You know what I'm saying? It kind of irritates me when people are like, oh, that should be easy. It's not. I'm going gray, pulling my hair out, trying to figure out where to cut ends and still be able to take care of people correctly to make them happy and continue doing business with our establishment. And I'm just doing pizza. You know what I'm saying? Imagine running an entire business with staff and training and all that kind of stuff. Sorry, I went off on that tangent. My bad.
No, you're good. Maui says Orlando's feet were chained to concrete blocks. That was funny. Daryl, I did not remember because I was 4 at the time, and that was about a year or two or so before I started watching the Chiefs. But I did look it up, and it's Ron Rust. I have no clue who that is, guys. So you'll have to tell me about Ron Rust. Ron Rust was the defensive coordinator for the '88 Chiefs. Holly says it seemed to take a long time for Mahomes to feel comfortable in the pocket, even after Orlando joined. Maybe part of that is on him. I think this is what Gooch was talking about earlier, and I believe this is, and I would agree with what Gooch said. You know, I think especially after Super Bowl 55, with what happened, right? I mean, I think PTSD, the closest you can get to it as a quarterback, um, I think it did create some bad habits, and I think understandably so, you know, and of course the drops have always been an issue. Gooch has talked about Mahomes' footwork. They've seen to correct some of those things. It's one of those things where Mahomes uh could drop back that far because he had the arm to make up for it. He has the arm to make up for dropping back that far. Um, and if that's what he needed to get more time, it just became the default. But it's also true that, after you lose Fisher and Schwartz, the reality is, what's your interior offensive line? We were rolling out what? We had Austin Ryder for the beginning, was it the beginning of Mahomes' career, or what? Did he have Mitch
Yep.
Morse for a year or so?
Um, no, Morse was with Alex. I think he had Ryder the whole time.
Okay. So, I mean, look at the interior offensive line he had. He had Mitch Morse. We had what? We had a year of Stefan Wisniewski, and we brought him back for Super Bowl 55. We brought him back for that run after he signed back with the Steelers, and they cut him, in the middle of the season, which tells you how much his play had dropped off. We signed him back, and he ended up, playing again. We had Kelechi Osemele uh, signed from the Raiders, and he did great for us. And then he got injured, and I forget who filled in at that point. Was it Allegretti? I don't even remember. But the point is until Veach went out and got Tooney and drafted Creed and Trey, the interior offensive line wasn't there. He didn't have a pocket he could step up to. He didn't have any reason to trust that he would have a pocket to step up to, especially with the turnstile of Austin Ryder being his center. So I'm willing to give him a little bit of a break between those two things. The fact that he had the arm to make up for dropping back that deep, and the fact that he kind of had to because he didn't have a pocket because of the interior offensive line. But yeah, I mean, if he's doing it now, if it were an issue this next season or even this last season, yeah, then it's a bigger issue. But back before, it was understandable, in my opinion. Maui says Mahomes needs an athletic, quick footed offensive tackle. Yeah, I mean, we definitely want a guy that still has some power. Um, I was all in on giving Trent Williams money when Veach offered it. I was all in on Veach making a trade for Tunzel before he re-signed or signed his extension with the Texans. Because those two guys have the athleticism, and I didn't look up Trent's bench numbers, but I know that Tunzel's bench numbers were better than Orlando's. Um, but yeah, as Gooch has pointed out, you have to decide. Are you going to be defending power or speed? And in our division, oftentimes some of the best rushers were power rushers. Of course, the problem became, in my opinion, from what I seen, was Orlando started getting beaten by the power rushers too. So if you can't beat the speed rushers and you're starting to get beat by the power rushers, you know, like without help or without having to face a much lesser talent, then why would we pay you? Um, let's see. Daryl says both coordinators both won Super Bowls. Are we talking about the '88 team? So I still have it pulled up here. Rod Rust was the defensive coordinator. George Sefcik was the offensive coordinator. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I've never even heard either of those names until I've looked them up. Um, Maui says a source close to the Bears said they believed Orlando was a right tackle. Yeah, the funny thing is, Maui, is I had a Bears fan arguing with me on Twitter that they should go out and make him the highest paid tackle, give him what he wants, just so that they can have him in Chicago. And I said, but that doesn't make sense because he wants to be a left tackle. And the fan said, we'll just pay him more. We'll pay him whatever it takes to get him to come to Chicago and be a right tackle. And first off, one, it's not going to work because it's so lodged in his head what his dad said to him and poisoned him from being maybe a top 3 right tackle, that he's not going to break free of it. But 2, why would you be so stupid that you would overpay a guy that much money just to be a right tackle? Like, it didn't even make sense. But that's how desperate some Bears fans were to improve their offensive line. So, okay, that's per Rappaport. Okay, yeah, I believe it. I don't know how many teams actually viewed Orlando as a left tackle. The Ravens didn't. They traded him to us. We didn't sign him to a long-term extension. Okay, Daryl's talking about Tony Dungy and Bill. All right, so you're talking about our defensive coordinators after the '88 season. Then Tony Dungy was what? He was like a defensive back coach, wasn't he, with the Chiefs?
Yeah, I think so.
I knew Bill Cowher was with us at that point early on, and I believe Tony Dungy was like a defensive back coach. Yeah, which makes it weird when, I don't know if it's just me, but it really seems like Tony Dungy does not like the Chiefs when, whenever he's doing like analysis and picking teams to win. But yeah. Maui asks if anyone missed CEH. I'm assuming you're talking about in the playoffs or from the time he got injured. Like, all I'll say is he had, 2 really good plays against the Chargers, right? And that's about all I remember from this last season. Is he had a heck of a hit on Derwin James and broke a tackle attempt, right? That was pretty amazing, especially for a man his size going up against Derwin James. But the honest truth is, no, I didn't miss him. Between what Pacheco was doing as the season went on and what we saw from McKinnon when he didn't have to be, as Gooch called him, the left tackle, like, didn't miss him at all. I didn't. I don't know about anyone else, but I didn't. Holly said, right on, Brian. And then Holly said, and Joe Tooney, who had a broken hand but played through it without any pomp and circumstance. Yeah, and I mean, if we believe Tyron, you can throw Tyron in there too, because he claimed that he had like a broken thumb or something all last season, but never showed up on injury report. So maybe Tyron was the one who filled out that NFLPA survey and put that on there about Rick Burkholder. I don't know. Anyway, guys, we finally made it through the end of the chat here. I want to thank you guys for making it this far. I didn't even think I would make it this far. I was kind of dozing off before we even started. But, yeah, appreciate you guys being here with us. Gooch, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about here really quick before we leave? I know it's later than it is for me.
Yeah, it's 4 o'clock, or 10 minutes to 4 where I am, which means it's 10 minutes to 3 where you guys are. We appreciate y'all. Anybody that hung with us throughout this whole thing, we definitely appreciate y'all. Sorry we've been gone for a while. We've been trying to catch up. We appreciate anybody that watches anything we do, whether religiously or in passing. It's truly fun to come on here and just talk football with you guys. We're probably going to be doing more of this. Shout out to my guy Aaron, I am super jealous watching John Wick 4 right now. So that's probably amazing. Make sure you tell somebody you love them in times like these. It's just nice to spread goodness everywhere. And we'll catch you in the next one for sure.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
See ya.
You got your team, and we got a kingdom. Ready for war, we score and win. We're the Super Bowl champs, the